Now, Dork Uncorked with Rod Phillips and Ryan Price on CFAX 1070.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the program. Welcome to Dork Uncorked for another day. My name is Ryan, and his name for today is the only Rod Phillips that really matters to us. The Dork Uncorked Rod Phillips. We don't have two this time. We have a single Rod Phillips, and he's our Rod Phillips. That makes him the best Rod Phillips. Rod, how you doing?
I'm doing well. That was a great show last week. I could have kept on talking for hours.
What we are referring to is our previous episode was with special guest Rod Phillips. No, not you, but this other guy named Rod Phillips, who's also a wine reviewer, a professor of wine and wine history at Carleton University, and just a bang-up, friendly guy who we really had a great time talking to. It was just a fascinating chat for so many different reasons. And also, it's just so funny that his name is also Rod Phillips. And as we learned, you and him have been confused for each other for
I'm confused
years and
all
years
the
and
time.
years.
Oh, yes.
There's that too.
Yeah.
Anyways, fascinating chat. I recommend anybody who missed it to follow Dork Uncorked the podcast. Go on any of your favorite podcast services, and you can listen back to previous episodes of the show. And that's one of them. Rod Phillips versus Rod Phillips.
Yeah.
It was great.
It was a great show. And I've picked up his book again, like the 9,000 Years of Wine, because I've read it once, and I picked it up again just to refresh my memory. And it is really quite fascinating how people's opinion of what wine, there's always been, as it seems, these two sides to the story about wine. One side sees it as evil and bad, and the other side sees it as, pleasurable and good. That should be encouraged, kind of thing, for all these reasons. And the bad side says, well, this is but all the bad stuff. Now, obviously, going back to Greek and Roman times, the bad side, they didn't have science to say what it does to your body. But it's fascinating that you could go back that far, and there's people saying, nope, don't do it, and there's people saying, yeah, sure, absolutely, enjoy yourself.
Well, isn't there a story from? I'm no historian. I'm no other Rod Phillips, but I've heard the story from Roman times that they used to water down their wine. They didn't have wine straight like we do. They had watered down wine. That was civilized. But the barbarians, they would drink their wine straight, and that marked you as a barbarian. So yeah, people have had opinions on wine and what it means and whether it's good or bad for as long as there's been wine.
Well, yeah, and obviously back then they didn't have labs to tell you what the percentage of alcohol is. So I can only imagine that every different batch would be a different percentage, and some really high, some really low, depending on what the temperature, what the temperature of the fermentation was at, the sugar content in the grapes when they harvested it, all of that stuff. They would never know that, right? So you could see that the barbarians would go, well, this tastes great, and woo! It's kind of like a spirit, right?
Direct quote. Woo!
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's where that came from. That's where that phraseology came from. Woo! Came from the barbarians at the gate. Yeah.
It was one of the first wine reviews in history. Was whoo.
Yeah.
Okay, so by the way, welcome to the show. We've just kind of jumped right into it, but this is Dork Uncorked. It's our show about wine and good things to drink. It is where Rod here, the Dork Uncorked, helps us navigate the plethora of choices on the wine shelves, gives us some recommendations, talks us through some good choices, but also we often just discuss things like, in this case, the history of wine, but in other cases, we often talk about sort of how to explore wine in a sense, like what kind of things should you taste for? What kind of wines are out there and what do they mean? Like, if you hear the term Sauvignon Blanc and you hear the term Riesling and you hear the term Cabernet Sauvignon, what does all this mean? What are these and how do you apply them to your enjoyment of it? We like to do those kind of episodes as well. And I kind of want to do that today. So on today's show, on Dork Uncorked, one of the things I want to do is springboard off something that came out of our previous episode with the other Rod Phillips, because he said something that I thought was kind of profound and it was sort of buried within everything else. But I think we should really zero in on this. And you I think also just, I saw your eyes light up when he got into this. He talked about the way he reviews wine as a wine reviewer, and that he thinks all of the stuff where we talk about hints of cherry and there's, hints of river rock with cat's pee out of goose bush or whatever it is, all these, he thinks all that's nonsense other than super dorks, which, we're kind of in the middle of, so sometimes you can forget. Most people, he argues, don't think about wine that way. They don't go into a store saying, I really feel like hints of cherry with, a spicy pepper finish and hints of tobacco cigar box. Like people are not going into a store thinking that. They're going into a store thinking, I want something that is going to be, I don't know, I want white and I want it to be fruity. Like that might be the extent of it. Or I want something that's really dry and might go well with my, I don't know, steak. Or, that's kind of the extent of what people are looking for. And then there's the price as well. And then there's, he also said, like, the label. Is the label going to make me look good? And is the price going to be something I like? And is it going to be a red that was easy to drink and not too tannic? Like that's like the extent of people's thought process when they're choosing the wine. So why don't wine reviewers speak like that? I think is what he was getting to, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and it makes perfect sense. And I think that the answer to that question goes back to where not back in terms of history, but back in terms of where do we get some of the first information about a wine from? And that typically comes from the winemaker. And the winemaker often will taste and is looking to find that just that little hint, that 1%, that 0.1 of a second that makes the difference. Like, what is making this vintage of this grape different than last year's? And so you got to dive down into that, because it's not, it's not a consumer. You're not asking the question as if you're a consumer. You're asking the question as if you are trying to differentiate this particular wine from the same wine last year. And therefore, I understand, then go back to your notes from the lab to say, this is what changed that, or just to get a better understanding of it. So, but that's not obviously not what a consumer's doing. They're not going into the store and saying, I would like to have a complete understanding of what the difference in the phenolic content is between this vintage and the last vintage. Can you show me two wines from the same producer of two different vintages, please? That's like, having worked in the stores for some time, and as in restaurants for some time, nobody has ever said that. The other part that, the other element of that is one of the things that you see in a lot of documentation as supplied by suppliers is literally the chemical analysis, like titratable acidity. And like somehow that is going to arm your salespeople and your marketing people to go out there and convert more consumers into your wine, that, hey, my titratable acidity is this. Like, see, I can see you laughing, because that's exactly how you choose your wine, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Tritratable acidity is should be on the label at the front.
Absolutely. Well, that's all there should be, right? There should be a rule. It's got to be black and white with titratable acidity. That's the statement right there. That's it.
Okay.
Anyway, so there is a lost in translation moment. Is what is important to the consumer is butting up against what is important to the winemaker and the supplier, right? So, yeah, and this is one of the things that I haven't been able to get my noodle around on this one particular issue. Actually, I've chatted with lots of suppliers about this. I've never been able to verbalize it properly. And that was, why is it that we have so much jargon that seems to push people away from experiencing wine? And even if it's experiencing it the first time, is experiencing as like a tested taster of it, an expert, an enophile, right? What is it about the jargon that is pushing that away? Because even a word like tannic, A lot of people don't know what that means until you tell them. That's that bitterness you get of tea. That's tannin. So we throw things out there, then we complicate it with saying, "Oh, well, you should be drinking this because of blah, 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 blah." And, deer in headlights. It's like somebody coming to me and say, "Well, you should get rid of your current desktop because it doesn't have blah, 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 blah." All these things, uh, all I want and have it work. That's what I want. It's like my car. I don't really care if it's 540 horsepower or 532. Or in the case of our electric car, if the range is 500 or 443. I want it to work when I want it to work. That's what I want. Yeah, so it's so these two things seem to be butting up ahead, and I've dominated this part of the conversation. So, yeah, what were your thoughts?
Well, actually, I've got a lot of thoughts on this, and I completely agreed with him about the kind of jargon making things seem inaccessible to the usual person. Not only are you faced with 1,000 different wines and you have no idea what to do when you go into a store, all the descriptions are not matching with what you're thinking or wanting. However, I do have a defense of sort of the tasting note approach to wine, which I will give you after the break, Rod. Oh, you gotta wait. We'll be back in just a moment on Dork Uncorked. We're back on Dork Uncorked with me, Ryan, with him, Rod Phillips, the Dork Uncorked, and we are reacting to our own episode from last week with the other Rod Phillips from Carleton University, wine historian, book author, and wine reviewer for the Ottawa Citizen newspaper, right?
Yeah, that's right.
What he said? Yeah. And he was talking about how he has a different approach to wine reviews. He doesn't talk about the this has hints of green apple and I don't know, gasoline and all of these things. He doesn't think that's useful. And I agreed with him a lot to a point. But here's the thing I wanted to make, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this. I agree with him completely that as a wine reviewer or as somebody who's even just trying to sell a wine and trying to find a way to communicate to the average person, that stuff doesn't matter and might get a little bit overcomplicated. And it creates this sort of sense of like a barrier. Like if you don't have the sophisticated palate that can pick these things up, you shouldn't be doing this. Maybe wine's not for you. Maybe you should stick with you're ready to drink coolers or something, ciders or whatever. You're not sophisticated enough for wine. It could create that kind of vibe. But the thing I'd say though is why I'm totally with him on that. If you're just trying to describe a wine to sell it to somebody to buy it, that makes sense. But the one time I do think that stuff is good is not so much when you're making the choice. For me, it's afterwards when you've got it home and you're enjoying it. Just as you personally tasting it, thinking about some of those things, thinking about some of those notes kind of helps cement the wine for me in like my memory, if that makes any sense. It kind of forces me to think about it, to not just drink it and forget it, but to, especially if it's a really nice wine and I want to spend a moment. If it's
you're right, because you're getting down to the specifics, like what makes this wine unique and therefore memorable.
Yeah.
And that's, going back to what I was saying about what the winemaker is saying. That's what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to, what makes this different and therefore memorable. Because you're right, the terminology of describing style, like which is where Rod was getting at, was the style of the wine, is pretty generic, right? There's how differentiated are you going to be able to speak to that? Because there's probably, if I were to go in and describe the style of, say, a white wine, I want it fresh, vibrant, fruity, and a little sweet.
Yeah,
probably.
That's the language that makes sense.
Yeah. There's probably 50 wines that would match that, going from like $9 to 70, right? So then the next question is, okay, what is your budget? And do you have a favorite grape or whatever it is that you can fit into that? But it's pretty generic. It's a pretty wide net to begin with, right? It's a pretty wide net.
Yeah. But do you think there's some merit to that idea that, all of that tasting note gobbledygook has a place, but it's more of a personal thing after the fact for
Totally.
yourself as a way to maybe talk about it and enjoy it and just think about it. But it's not necessarily how you made the choice initially, but it's sort of a way for you to, I don't know, be present in the moment with a wine. If it's that kind of wine. Maybe it's not that kind of wine. Maybe you're out with friends and you're having pizza or something, and the wine is just there and it's good enough because it, goes with pizza and it was not too tannic, which is all you wanted at that moment. But if you're having a wine that's like, I'm going to sit down with my, wife after a hard day, a hard week's work, and we're going to sit on the deck and enjoy wine and really think about it. Like, then I think that's where that language and that approach makes sense, and I think does have a place.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what gives things like Vivino and any of the places that people will track their wines. Like when they taste a wine, and you do Untapped would be for beer. When you're putting that record in there, that's where that comes in, because you want to create a distinctive record. And I think that indeed, for like, even for myself, like when I taste a wine, like, there's, in many ways, I go into the store with a certain goal, like any other consumer does. My goals are likely going to be different from everybody else's, just because that's how consumers are. But when I go in there, okay, here's what I want. So, with foreshadowing, maybe one of the picks of the week at the end of the show.
Well, wait a minute. Hang on. No, you just said, did astute listeners just pick up on a hint Rod just dropped?
Yes.
He just, you might have missed it. He said it so fast. One of the picks of the week. Are you hinting that we have multiple?
Yeah, we've got dozens now.
Oh,
because,
okay. Dozens of picks of the week. Sorry. Okay. Anyways, sorry. I'm messing with you. Lots of picks of the week coming. Well, what's going on?
Yeah, but I was thinking, like, a couple things went into my decision making. I looked at my weather app to see what the weather was going to be like, on the weekend. I was looked at that. I looked at what is going, because this weekend still, I find this crazy that here in BC the pricing windows go from a Sunday to a Saturday. So this weekend, if you're to go into a store on Saturday, all the things that are on sale on Saturday will not be on sale on Sunday. And why they don't wait until, I don't know, like, just do it to the Sunday. Like, who cares? Anyway, so I had that in mind. Like, okay, I got to be conscious of what the weather is going to be like, and I've got to be conscious of this pricing change that is happening this weekend. And those were the two guiding principles that I had for the picks. So again, every consumer is going to walk in with a different buckets that they're gonna look for. And the other thing about the tasting part and why it is personal is that, and we've talked about this on the show many, many times, is that the mood that you are in, you've mentioned you just got home from work. Okay, that is going to affect the acidity on your palate. That's going to affect your palate and and your mindset. Like, if you're in a terrible mood, I don't care what it is, it's probably not going to taste very good, or it's going to taste like nothing, right? If you're in a terrible mood. But if you're in a great mood, you're confident, you're feeling good, boy, things taste so much better then, right? And it could be the same product. It just tastes better. So that's why it is important at the personal level to do that, because I am certain that there's people, the listener to our show has heard me say, oh, this particular product has these kind of flavors to it. And then they taste it and they go, I don't taste that.
Yeah. What?
I don't get that. What is he talking about? It's kind of like, what was it? A few years ago on social media, they had this, I think it was a dress, and certain people saw it as gold or blue or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
And I remember how frustrating and wild of an experience that was, because if you saw one color and you only saw one, and then you'd show it to your wife or your friend or whatever, and they'd say, no, it's the other one. And you'd be like, what do you mean? How on earth is this that? But that was, yeah, you're right. And they also do those sometimes with those audio clips where it'll be a sound and some people hear one word and some people hear another word. Yeah, but I guess that, to your point, like, everybody's perception is going to be different for many things, including the taste of wine. So that also makes it such a personal thing, and also makes it a little bit hard if the way you're trying to describe the wine is with all of these tasting notes that not everybody's going to pick up on because everybody's going to taste it differently, which I guess gets back to his main point again, which I wanted to get back to. What is better language? And he kind of gave some ideas, but what did you think about that? You know, better ways to describe a wine.
Yeah, I think, well, here's what I took away from that is like, it's so much easier if I speak English and you speak French that we find some common ground to be able to communicate. If the goal is to understand each other, you're going to find some common ground. And I think that's where that point was going to, is that what is the language we can share to understand what I'm looking for as a consumer and what I have as a seller. And that is style, right? That is definitely style. So it is about the weight of the wine. It is about the texture of the wine on the palate. That's what it's about. It's about, is it sweet? Is it not sweet? Is it tannic, bold, strong, or is it light? Those are the things that everybody can understand and agree on. So typically, if somebody says to me, I'm looking for a light, delicate red with good fruit character, okay, that narrows it down. I'm probably going to go Pinot, Gamay, Barbera, Bernarda. Those would be the grapes that would fit into that. And then I would ask the question, great, I can think of 4 grapes that would fit into that, and therefore regions that would fit into that. What's the price point? Because you're going to probably eliminate a whole bunch of Pinot if your price point is under $15. You're going to eliminate the Gamay, maybe, which if your price point is under $15, right? These are all the things that are going to come from that. And as you're working through that, you're getting very quickly to, okay, here are your choices. You've got 3 wines in front of you. Your wife probably only wants you to take home 1. So which one are you going to choose, right? Which one are you going to choose? So, yeah.
Maybe your wife, Rod.
Yes. She doesn't want me to bring home any more.
Yeah, you've bought enough.
Right.
Rod, hang out. We got to take another break here on Dork Uncorked, but maybe a bit more on the language of wine coming up in just a moment. We're talking about how we talk about wine. Go figure. Rod, here's what I want to do. Since we're talking about sort of other ways to approach wine that's more in line with the way people actually think about it, like regular people, not dorks, not you, but normal people. Which, again, springs off of our conversation from last week with the other Rod Phillips. By the way, we got to get him back. He was fantastic. I had just such a great time.
What I would like to, we should merge these things. He mentioned that he's got a book coming out about the history of cats.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to, like, that next conversation is going to, like, I'm not a cat person. So, like, frankly, I couldn't care less about cat, but I would love to merge these two topics together. And how do they merge? Like, how do the cats and wine? Let's.
There's probably some way to make that argument.
Absolutely, yeah.
But here's what I'm thinking. With this, trying to find a more kind of consumer-friendly way of talking about wine, with that as the topic, I thought it'd be kind of a fun exercise for me to get you to take a different approach to describing some of our recent wines that have come up on the show, like Picks of the Week. You game?
I always game. Anything you throw at me, I'm happy to try to get it back.
Without using, the usual wine geeky things and tasting note things. You recently, I think it was on sale, talked about the Oyster Bay Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. How would you describe that wine?
Well,
in this game.
In this game, well, let me throw this out at you. It tastes like licking a table tennis racket on a wet tiger.
Exactly.
Does that work? Is that what you're looking for?
That is a good example of what we're trying to avoid. Well done.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I would describe it as this: vibrant, fresh, crisp, and light. That's how I describe it. That's how those would be the things that I would describe it. And finally, a fifth thing: dry. So this is not going to be sweet. In other words, the component is not going to be sweet. It's crisp, so it's not going to be unctuous, is not going to have a big texture on it. Vibrant in that it leaps out of the glass. It's like a fresh, almost. Nope, I'm not going to say that. Like a freshness is going to come out of it. Those are the things that I would describe that as.
And that's a challenge, because like when I think of that particular wine, one of the first things that pops into my mind is citrusy. But like that's getting into those tasting notes, which is not maybe like, I don't know if you go into a wine store thinking, I feel like citrus in my wine today. Like, I don't know. Like, again, it gets hard.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. And that's you're absolutely right. Because that's almost what I went for.
Yeah. I know.
Was to say
like,
that. The vibrance. Yeah.
You recently talked about a Pinot Grigio from Italy called Bola.
Yeah.
And how would you describe that one?
Again, I would go fresh, lively, vibrant, dry, and crisp. It has all of those things right in there.
Yes, but you just used that exact same one for the Sauvignon Blanc.
So,
but this is a Pinot from New Zealand, and this is a Pinot Grigio from Italy. So I'm already realizing there's a problem here.
Yeah. So those two wines likely have two different prices. So if I'm in the store, I grab the Oyster Bay and I grab this one. The Oyster Bay, let's call it that. It's on sale for $12.99. The Bola is on sale for $13.99. Both of these fit that styling. Now you would get into, well, I find this has citrusy flavors. I find this one has more pear or apple or something along those lines. Where would you lean that way? That's how I would approach that. Is that's when you're getting into that. You're not saying I taste this in that. You're saying this is where that leans. Right. So because it is. Okay. I mean, you can't get away from that because Viognier, jasmine and apricots, like somewhere along the line. If you don't like apricots, or if you don't like apples, I would like to know that ahead of time, right?
But I think this is illuminating, but also useful because probably a lot of consumers don't actually care if it's a Sauvignon Blanc or a Pinot Grigio. I don't care what the grape was, as long as it's doing those things, as long as it's crisp and fresh and vibrant. It's flavorful and easy to drink. What about, let's do a red. Friend of the show, I would say. This wine has come up many times as a good kind of budget Chianti style wine. It is the Sangiovese from, I'm forgetting the name already.
Is it a Chianti?
It's not Chianti, it's the Sangiovese Rubicon. It's the
Giocondi. Yeah.
Sorry, Giocondi. I had it in front of me, then I went and closed the note. So the Giocondi, which is a Sangiovese, often in a giant bottle, if you can find it, from Italy. How would you describe that one without using the geekery?
Okay, without the geekery. Texture-wise, it is... Texture-wise, it has some structure to it. It's about a medium weight. It's not light. It's not heavy. It's medium weight, food friendly that way. It has I'm struggling here because of immediately. I'm because you're not talking about the scent, because if you're talking about the aromatics, then you often get into it smells like things.
Well, would you describe it as like this is on the lighter side? So, okay, it's a red. It's going to be
it's light
on
to
the
medium
lighter side
bodied.
of red.
Yeah, light to medium bodied. Yeah. Texture is it has it's got some structure to it. So there's some tannin in there. So it's going to be good for a food wine, but not like vegetarian. That kind of thing. What else would I put in there? What else? It's dry. It's not sweet. So it's a dry wine. So you're getting dry, medium, light to medium body with some structure.
Okay.
Yeah,
very
food friendly.
good.
Yeah.
Now let's go to the other end. Let's go to let's do a BC one. Let's go big. A Cab Franc from the Okanagan. What's the Hester Creek's got one that's usually pretty.
Yeah. Hester, Tinhorn.
They all have those.
They've all got those.
So how would you use non-dork language to describe one of those guys?
This is a bigger, bolder style of wine. So you're getting a richer style, medium to full-bodied, The texture, texture is medium to full bodied. You're getting more tannin, more structure in the wine. Um, it is going to be a deeper, richer flavor profile. So you're going to get more. I'm not going to try not. I desperately try not to go to a fruit thing.
This is. I hope listeners are also enjoying watching Rod squirm, trying to how do I describe wine without wine geek language? It's a challenge.
Well, it's being a wine geek for all these years. That's hard.
Yeah.
So it's dry. It's not sweet. It's going to be dry. It's a structured wine. It is medium to full bodied. That's what I got. I got. Yeah.
I'm only gonna do one more of these.
Okay.
And it's with my tongue firmly planted in my cheek, and I'm gonna smirk the whole way. The Mayomi Pinot Noir from California.
Something that should not be in your
long-time listeners know why I'm laughing.
Yeah. Something that should not be in your glass. How about that? Gravity is working against you with that one. Okay. So here's how, if somebody were to ask me about that, I would say, here's a wine that is on the sweeter side. It is medium bodied. There isn't any sort of, it's full force. It's not like it's a full flavor profile in your mouth. It has not got the delicacy that you would normally associate with Pinot, or the body that you would normally associate with a Pinot. But if you like full force, medium structure, juicy style, then here you go. But
I could see people walking into a store saying, you know what I want? Big, fruity, juicy, bold red wine with very little tannin. Just that.
Yeah.
That could be somewhere you point them to.
Yeah, well, and that's where I would probably, if that was a case, I would look at Aussie Reds would be where I would go. I wouldn't go to Mayomi.
I know. I'm doing it just to twist your arm. Pull your leg. But
you're right. There's lots of people. One of my company's advisors, he loves a Mayomi cab. And it is just that. It's to me, it doesn't taste much like anything. It's just juicy. It's richly textured. It's got all these things in it that, from a hedonistic point of view, satisfies the needs. And this is where I think sometimes or maybe every time, is you got to put some context around what you're having this for. It's been a tough week. So maybe sometimes I don't even really want to think about it. I just want hedonism. Right. That's what I want. Other times, we're having friends over. They're all foodies and wine geeks. We're going to be thinking about this. Oh, okay. Well, I'll give you something with a little bit more.
You know what? I like that as a descriptor, by the way, because we talked about some of those basic things that most people actually would go into the store for. I'm looking for, it's either going to be fruity, or it's going to be sweet, or it's going to be dry, or it's going to be big, it's going to be light bodied, it's going to need to go with food or not. I think a useful descriptor is this a wine you're going to sit and think about, or is this a wine you're going to be forgetting about as you do something else? I think that's actually a really useful thing to offer in one of those kind of descriptions.
Yeah, I agree. And that's, again, it comes back to the context. Where's your mindset? Has it been a great week? Has it been a tough week? Is it, what's going on? Are you cooking with this? And I don't mean, are you pouring this into the dish? I mean, as you're cooking, are you going to be enjoying this? Is that where you're at? Are you having this before dinner or with dinner? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for letting me make you squirm there. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, that was a tough one. Apologies to all the Mayomi fans out there, but now you know where I stand.
And again, if you like it, that is totally fine. It is not a problem. Rod just doesn't, and I like to bug him about it. So it's kind of fun. Anyways, Rod, we, as previously hinted, have multiple picks of the week this week. So I think we need to leave a little extra space for that. So we should probably take our break here to make sure we have room for all of it. And maybe we can apply some of what we've been talking about to the picks of the week.
We'll
get it. Yes. Okay. So let's do that. This is where Rod will give us his recommendations, wines that have outperformed their price, given great bang for the buck in the bottle. What are his picks? We're going to find out next. You are listening to Dork Uncorked with me, Ryan, with him, the Dork Uncorked, Rod Phillips. And yes, there's only one of them today.
Aren't you lucky?
Back to normal. Back to just an equal balance of Rod Phillips. No, this is the pick of the week. This is where Rod brings us his recommendation for a wine that has outperformed its price and been just something he wants to recommend to everybody. But as you mentioned earlier, we got a couple of them. So let's dive in. Where do you want to start?
Yeah. So, well, as I mentioned earlier in the show, this weekend is a little different in that there's a price change that happens right in the middle of it. So the first one I'm going to mention is something that you could cook with. Like you could have it and enjoy it. It's a red wine. It's on sale to $22. It's normally $25. But to me, this is and it's the 2023 vintage. So this particular wine, you want to look for the 2023, not the 2022 in this particular wine, 2023. So to go along with the theme of the show, it's got good fruit. It's going to be fruity. It's a medium bodied. It is medium structure. So it's not tannic and it's not lacking in tannin. So this is going to be really good for dinner or appetizers or that kind of stuff. It is definitely dry. It's not going to be sweet. So if you're considering something that you are going to put your mind to a bit, like you're making a dish that you're proud of and you want to be thinking about all the things that go to make that looking the best. This is the wine for that, and it's on sale.
And it's a good thinking wine. It's a good food wine, medium bodied, bit of fruit. Okay. This sounds like, something that is accessible and normal people would understand and enjoy.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now, do you need the name of it or are you just good with that?
Maybe we should get the name. What is it?
Okay. It is the Castello di Gabbiano Chianti Classico 2023. So it is the step up from the regular Gabbiano, and it's a step below the Riserva. And to be honest, the Riserva is older, so there is, I guess, more cerebral elements to it, but I didn't like the wine as much. Even though it's like at $2 more and it's been aged a little more, to me, what I needed it for was just what I described, where I'm making a nice meal, trying to pair this, I'm making it for other people as well. And I want something that's going to be approachable to all those other people. The Riserva, I think I would find that really cool because it has that little bit of extra age, and that does have a different context. So it's not as fruity. It's got some age to it. It's got some, the structure is softened a little bit, but that doesn't necessarily make it a better wine, especially if I'm having people over that are not geeks like me, dorks like me. So anyway, it's Gabbiano Chianti Classico 2023, and it's on sale for $22.
And Castello is in the name, you said. Okay, so look for that on the label in the Italian section. But that's just one of your offerings today. Okay.
Now, on the other side of the coin, we're going light, fresh, fruity, for the most part dry, but a little kiss of sweetness at the end. And this wine is not on sale, but it's only $9.99. And it's a white. So the reason I'm suggesting this is that I mentioned earlier that I looked at what the weather is going to be like. So we are having unseasonably warm weather, and the weekend is supposed to be somewhat glorious. So I'm guessing that you're going to be much like myself. There's going to be lots of people out there going and getting their pressure washer and getting their deck all ready to go or their back patio ready to go. And
we have never asked for the correct pairing with pressure washing. What wine goes best with the pressure washer?
It's more about the wine after the day of pressure washing and setting everything up, and it's like work.
Don't limit this wine; it could do it all.
Yeah, that's right. And the likelihood that you've gone down to like the Rona or Home Depot or Canadian Tire a couple times, yeah. So that's what the day is like. So you want something that you're going to sit on your proud patio in the afternoon after you've done all this, light, fresh, fruity, with a little bit of sweetness, and that is the Blauberg. white wine from South Africa. $9.99.
Oh,
Yeah.
now that's one that I've found
Yes,
previously.
it is. Yeah.
I want to say, I'll retell the story for those who missed it. So the reason I love this wine is I went into a store once, and this has come up a few times on the show, where and like many people, will go into a store because you've got a recipe that calls for wine. Wine needs to go into the cooking. That always troubles me because wine's expensive, and I always choke as I'm about to just dump it in. I'm like, oh, but I could drink it. So I need to find a wine that's cheap enough that I don't feel bad about pouring it into gravy or sauce or whatever it is I'm making. But I also want something that's good enough that I will drink it. And so I went into the store once and was just going around, and I happened to see, like you said, a $9.99 bottle of South African white. I thought, hey, $9.99, I could dump that into cooking for that price. But then I turned out to love it. I tasted it, and it was great for the price. So that was that gets my check mark for wine that is cheap enough to cook with, but good enough to drink.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah, and that's where, like, last weekend was the same thing. This weekend, I know that I'll be lifting, scrubbing, squirting things, probably planting some stuff, washing windows, all that kind of stuff that you do at this time of the year. So I want something that I'm going to sit down probably before dinner and just have a glass and have it fresh, fruity, light, with a little bit of sweetness on the back end. Something that should go well with my workday and my patio.
I love it. There you go. The picks, plural, of the week. The Blauberg from South Africa. And what is the wine again? It's like a blend of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Sauvignon Blanc blended with Semillon and a little bit of Riesling. And that little bit of Riesling is what gives it that little bit of a sweetness kiss.
Yeah, it's really unique and enjoyable, but easy. It's really cool. So that was the white. For the red, one more time, it is the
Castello di Gabbiano Chianti Classico 2023.
There it is. The show. We're done. Rod,
Woo!
This is great.
Oh, there's that barbarian thing. Woo!
Woo! There we go. That was the other thing we had to work into our reviews. Does it make you go, whoo?
That's right. So does it go with,
Bottom
does it
line.
pair well with a pressure washer? And does it make you go,
Going-
woo?
Man, it's actually sounded like a pretty good weekend at this point. That's what it sounds like. Okay, Rod, that's it. We'll talk again soon.
All right, cheers.